First and foremost, just want to thank you all for joining us this evening. My name is Tyler Sims. I work here at ChiroTouch, and tonight's webinar is on a topic that I think is not addressed enough, which is the value of statistics and how it can help grow your practice. And our speaker tonight is someone I have had the chance to get to know over the last few months. I saw him at ChiroFest, as I'm sure some of you did as well. Not only was he voted Best Chiro by the St. Louis community, but he was also the team Chiro to the 2011 World Series St. Louis Cardinals. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Alex Vidan.
Thank you, Tyler, and everybody, thank you all for being here. I have a lot of content to cover, so I'm going to make sure that we get it all in, but we'll make sure that you can really dig into it and everything else. So I'm going to start off by saying this, like, I have nothing to sell you, no back-end products. I just want to help you reach your goals and possibly learn from my mistakes and just the lessons that I've been fortunate enough from my own life to learn, as well as spending time with decamillionaires, centimillionaires, and a couple billionaires. So I'm going to share some of those things. I don't say those things as like a pat on my back for any of that stuff. I just say it as I eventually got to the point of me listening to people and starting looking at it as, well, how can I use this to grow my practice? And that's really it. So I'm going to be sharing a few strategies today that I don't know which ones are going to be like the aha moment for you. So listen for that. But then when you hear it, write it down so that you don't end up forgetting anything. If some of what we're talking about doesn't connect for you, or maybe you knew it already, that's fine. Those are the strategies that are going to work for some other people. So, and that's totally fine too. But I do invite you to listen to the tools, the strategies, the ideas that you can share with your team and you can take back to your office to apply and use. Let's get into it. So let's go from here. So we're going to do a really quick experiment, just 16 seconds. And I just want you to focus on this. I want you to see how many passes does the team in white make. So really quick, just check this out. How many passes does the team in white make? So here we go. All right, so let's see. How many passes did you count? Was it 11, 12, 13, 14? And really think about, like, what was that number? What'd you see? And let's get into this. Like, great. So who saw the moonwalking bear? And for a lot of you, you're like, well, I had a number. I did not see a moonwalking bear. So let me show it to you as proof that this is where we were. So that's it, right? It's easy to miss something that you're not looking for, and that's called inattentional blindness. And that's the failure of noticing something that's fully visible but unexpected because your attention was engaged on another task. It's the phenomenon that causes you to miss things that are right in front of your eyes. And I will tell you this, in my practice, I was failing to notice things that I needed to see because my attention was engaged on other tasks and I was looking at other things. So think about this for yourself. Think about this. Have you ever done any of these? Or maybe you've known other people that have, right? So you've judged how well your business is doing by looking at your bank account. I can tell you right now, I've been guilty of that. Knowing your numbers means your MPs, your visits, your PVA, and that's it. And again, I've been guilty of that as well. And then looking at other stats is really an afterthought. It's just kind of I'll do that some other time, right? I'm saying this, like, I have done this because I didn't know what being a business owner was. I knew what being a chiropractor was, but not a business owner. And then when my wife and I started our practice 20 years ago, we had no clue and no one really to show us what that looked like, not this aspect of it. And then if I'm being completely candid with you and honest about all of this, is that there was, in retrospect, I look at it and I go, there was a bit of ego that was involved. As in, I didn't want to ask anybody about how to track stats because I was the business owner and I felt like I should know that. If I own a business, I should probably know that stuff, which is ridiculous because most people don't know any of that stuff, like your real stats and what that looks like. So this, before we get into it, I just want to say this quote right here, for me, when I first read this quote, I thought it was brutal. But there was a lot of us as business owners, we'll look at it and we'll go, we need to be able to trust our data. And I can tell you this, I have used two other EHR companies, and I could never trust their data. I've been using ChiroTouch now for years because I know that I can trust their data. I know that I can look at that. And as an entrepreneur, we need to make decisions. And in order to make decisions, we need to have high quality data. And if you don't have high quality data, then you're going to have poor decisions and you're not going to like the life that we end up living. And so one of the skills that I see successful entrepreneurs have is understanding what these basic equations of business are. And what I want to share with you today are a few of those most important equations that I see businesses use to analyze the decisions that they're about to make in order to understand their need for growth, determine bottlenecks, etc. And then understanding these equations are really going to make you a better business person and allow you to understand a lot of what's happening in your business. So those three basic equations are these. And we're going to get into this, and then we're going to get into some deeper things too. So let me explain. The three basic equations, if you're taking notes, definitely write this stuff down because I'm going to get into some details on this too, are your start, your show, and your stay. I try to keep it simple. So start, show, stay. And your start is this. It's your start rate. So how many people actually, what percentage of people actually start care? And so if you look at it and go, look over the last month, and you fill in these numbers with all of these things, I'm going to be giving numbers just to keep simple math. And so fill in the numbers that are right for you. But just say here, like we've got 50 potential new patients that walked in the door this month or last month, whatever it is. 45 of those that actually started care. That means you've got a 90% start rate. Now, here's the thing. Whenever you're looking at that, you need to look, all right, what was it last month, the month before that, the month before that, and keep looking at that so you understand, all right, on average, what is my start rate for people starting care in my practice? The problem is that I can't speak for everybody, but I can say that for me, I know that whenever I'm thinking back about patients, I don't think about the ones that aren't there in front of me. I just have this blind spot there where it's hard for me to think back and go, oh yeah, that patient never started care, right? Because I'm just moving on to the next one. And I'm focusing on the patients that are there in front of me. And because I have a heart for caring about them. But I want to know, well, why didn't these other people start care? And if I can look at my start rate and I can understand, like, all right, if I'm at 90%, I'm doing pretty good. We average around 94%, plus or minus. That's kind of where we like to stay, about 94% start rate here in my practice. But I would tell you this, before really digging into this and looking at my numbers, I didn't realize it was even a problem. I just looked at it and went, okay, we had X number of new patients this month, and that's what it was. Not, we had a potential of 50 new patients this month, but only 25 started. So that's a 50% start rate. That then tells me I'm not doing a good job communicating in my new patient process to allow people to really understand what we do at our practice and in caring for them so that they can understand how they can get the outcomes that they want and the best results possible. So number one, start rate. Number two, kept appointments. And it's the same thing, right? You want to see your scheduled appointments versus your kept appointments. So you've got a percentage there as well. And this is really important as well. You don't want to look at it as PC. So I call that PC, I call that professional courtesy. So these are the people that, like in my office, it would be, we take care of a lot of other chiropractors in our community. We take care of even some other communities, some other chiropractors' families as well. We take care of like my mom, my mother-in-law, like my family as well comes in and gets care, as well as my other staff. None of those count for our stats. So we can't count any of those. They can't help for your numbers because that skews other numbers that we'll talk about, right? So, but you've got to look at it from the percentage of what percent of people are actually keeping the appointments and what of those are scheduled, because that'll give us, again, a number. That will tell me, because with all these things, right, there's a story behind the numbers. There's a story behind these numbers that you're looking at, right? So start rate is going to tell me, am I doing a good job on my day one, day two, or my new patient process, whatever that is. We use a two-day process. My kept appointments, am I doing a good job on communicating the importance of care, and am I doing a good job on my table talk whenever they're in, or am I making it about other things and talking about things that really don't matter? I want to keep it focused on them and the importance of care. And if they miss an appointment, I'm going to make sure to nip that in the bud right away and tell them, all right, let's get that made up right away. Like the first time that it happens. In fact, in our office, the first thing we do is, and I'll just give you one little thing to use as well to keep patients on track, is we give them a slip. And it's just a slip that says that they missed an appointment on the date that they missed it, and then when we're projecting the next time that they're going to come and make that next appointment. They can change that, but we give it to them, and it's just a little quarter sheet. We hand it to them, and I tell them, here that is. Hand that to the front desk, and they kind of look at it like, oh, it's like a detention slip, right? It kind of takes them back to that. And so they're going to take that up to the front desk, and the front desk is going to get it scheduled. But that lets them know, oh, they're not going to let me slip. And if we keep them on track, they end up getting the end results that they want. And that's what this comes down to, them getting the end results that they want. Because when they don't keep on track and we don't hold them to a standard and we don't hold them to their appointments and make sure that they understand what's going on, then they don't get the results that they want. But guess who they don't blame? They don't blame themselves. They don't look at it and go, I didn't hold up to my end of the deal because they didn't hold my feet to the fire with it. It's really the truth. And so if we hold them accountable for that, then they get the results that they want. And that's what we want for all of them too. And then wellness transition. So a large portion of our practice is wellness. And so we want to look at the total number of wellness plans that we have presented, and then with the number of people that actually transition to wellness. And so we're going to look at both of those numbers and combine them so that we get a percentage there as well. And I want to know, and here's the thing, a lot of times whenever we talk about this, these presented wellness plans, I say present that to everybody, because I want everybody to have the chance to get wellness care, at least in my practice. I want everybody to get wellness care. And we don't strong anybody, we just talk to them about it. We let them know these are the benefits and this is why, and we've been talking about it the whole way through. But I want to know that total number. What I don't want to do is just present it to the people that I think are going to say yes. So I want to make sure I have a true number. Now, I will tell you this, I don't present this. We do some personal injury in my practice. I don't do that for them because the vast majority of them in my practice are not going to transition into wellness. It doesn't mean all of them won't. We certainly have a percentage of them that do, but we'll talk to them about it. But for some of them, it's just like, it's just not in the cards, or it's just not going to work out for whatever reason. That's not why I'm here, whatever it is. And we talk to them about that as well. Now, some of you could look at just these three things, right? And you could work with these three basic equations of business and say, okay, I'm going to do this weekly, I'm going to do this monthly, and be like, all right, I'm good, right? I've got it. For those of you that are looking to get more advanced and dig deeper into that and want to go into that, let's do that. So let me show you this too. So a lot of times we hear people talk about lifetime value. You'll usually hear people talk about that more in a marketing standpoint. They'll say, well, what's your lifetime value for a patient? And a lot of times whenever that happens, we don't even really understand what LTV is, what lifetime value is. So let me give you the equation of what that is and how that relates to your practice and why it's important to understand behind that, like the deeper side of that. And then I've got one other formula, one other equation for you that's really going to be good in helping you understand about the growth of your practice and the profitability of your practice. So LTV is your average monthly revenue per patient times the average patient lifespan. So that looks like this. It's the average amount of revenue that's generated from that single patient each month, right? And then you're going to calculate this by adding up the total revenue that a patient generates in a given period of time, let's say a year or X number of months, whatever that is, and then divide it by the number of months in that period. So that looks like this. And for all these, I will give you real life examples, but stick with me. So if a patient spends $1,200 with you over the course of a year, that means their average monthly revenue would be $100. That means it's 1,200 divided by 12 months equals 100, because it's the dollar amount divided by the amount of time that they're with you. It's going to equal that $100. And that's what it's going to be on the average per month. Now, when we're looking at the average patient lifespan, it gets a little bit more. So stick with me, because I know a lot of you are thinking to yourself, I don't like math. This isn't it, right? That's not it. That is, you likely just haven't had the time or taken the time to break it down and do this work, which we're going to be doing, so that you can see it. And I will tell you this, as Tyler said too, right? So I've been blessed to work with multiple pro athletes in several different leagues, and I can tell you that they do the same thing over and over and over. In working with the Cardinals, I can't tell you how many times I saw like Yachty or Pujols or Waino or any of those guys studying video of the other teams. And they don't want to do that, but they know it's what's required for them to hold themselves to a standard so that they can then be where they want to be, right? And that standard makes them champions and soon to be Hall of Famers whenever I'm talking about that particular group. And I will say this too, I mean no disrespect in this, but they're just playing a game. Look what you're doing, right? you're changing people's lives, like you're impacting people's lives, and that's huge. And so let's really understand the business side of this so that you can impact more lives. And so when we're looking at that average patient lifespan, the formula for that is this. It's going to be the average patient lifespan equals 1 over your churn rate. So you might have heard people talk about churn rate, and churn rate is this. It is the number of patients lost over the total number of patients at the beginning of the period. So I'll break it down for you, but this is what's called churn rate. And a lot of times whenever people hear that, they're like, oh yeah, I didn't really understand what churn rate was. So let me explain, because we're going to break it down more so that you can really see. Churn rate equals basically how long are they staying with you, right? Let's say that you started the month with 100 patients and you ended the month with 90 patients. During that month, you lost 10 patients. Using this formula, you can calculate your churn rate like this. Your churn rate is going to be 10, the number that you lost, over the 100, which is where you started. And then you're going to be at 10% is going to be your churn rate, or 0.1, whatever that is, right? So the churn rate for that month is going to be 10%. Okay, hopefully that's sticking for some of you. You're taking notes and it's making some sense, because now I'm going to tie it together for you so that you can see it a little better here. So the average patient lifespan equals, or is the 1 over the churn rate, which in this sense was 0.1, which is 10 months. And so we basically looked at it and go, all right, the average patient lifespan is 10 months. In this particular example, again, plug in these numbers where they fit for you so that you understand, okay, how long does a patient actually stay with me? So when I'm looking at that amount of time, I'll know how long they stay. Maybe it's 1 month, maybe it's 3 months, maybe it's whatever, right? These are just example numbers. It doesn't matter. Just plug in yours. So that means this. Your LTV looks like this. It's your average monthly revenue per patient times the average patient lifespan. So that's going to be the average monthly revenue. Remember, we said was 100, and then we said the average patient lifespan was 10 months. So that's going to be $1,000. And so that's their LTV. So that lets you know, if I understand what an LTV for that patient is, that lets me understand a lot of different things. That lets me understand, well, if this is what their LTV is, then that lets me understand what I can do as far as spending money on marketing, or what I can do as far as when each one of those new patients comes in, what that looks like over what period of time. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing that, you're seeing the story behind these numbers with that as well. And I can tell you this in my last little bit here. I'm going to tell you this, because Tyler and I wanted to keep this short, sweet, to the point, and kind of just hit as much as we could here, because this last and final section is going to be one you're really going to want to hear. If you stop looking for the shortcut and you find your discipline, then basically you're going to find your freedom. And I love that quote from Jocko, because I look at it as that discipline equals freedom. And digging into the numbers and understanding what these numbers actually mean for your business is where it all comes together. So this is where we're going to get really big here. Okay, so let's go with this. Let's get into margin. If you don't understand margin, if we don't understand margin, then we don't understand what our business is really about. We don't understand all of that. And I can say this for me, I did not understand this for the longest time. I looked at it as, well, I've got money in the bank account, so I'm good, right? And I've got patients coming in the door and I've got people here. But when you understand this part, this margin, it really makes a huge difference. And so some of you are going to hear some of these terms and be like, yeah, I know what that is. I think I understand what that is. But I'll break it down for you, okay? So your gross margin, that's your direct cost to fulfill your services, all right? So direct cost to fulfill the services. And it looks like this. So let's simplify that. It's your revenue minus your COGS, your cost of goods sold. Now, I will tell you this, don't zone out here and don't say, like, I don't like the math. I'm going to be really clear. It's just subtraction for all this, all right? The COGS for us, because we don't sell a physical product, is going to be really selling payroll hours. It's going to be your payroll, my payroll, the rest of the team's payroll, whatever that is, because we're selling payroll hours. So it's how much you're making minus the cost of goods sold, your revenue minus your COGS. And in this example here, I said, look, let's say $60 is what you're charging for your adjustment, let's say, for that's your revenue, minus your cost of goods sold, which is 20. Don't worry, I will give you all real life numbers. I'm just trying to give some here. That means 40 is left over, but it's not left over for you. That goes into another bucket. I'll show you. So determine your gross margin. When you're looking at that, it's going to be that 40 over the 60. The 40, which was what was subtracted from your cost of goods sold, into your 60. That means you're at 66% of your gross margin. Now we want that gross margin to be at 80%. And it's really, really, really important why, or really, really, really important. And I'm going to tell you why. Because just by changing this number, you can literally just double the amount of money just by changing one number here. You can double the amount of money that you actually take home. Okay, so as long as you want to hear that, stick with this. So the net margin is what's left over at the end of the month after everything is paid. So the net margin is like, all right, what else is left over after everything's paid? So it looks like this. Your net margin is your revenue, which we just talked about, minus your COGS, which we just talked about, your cost of goods sold, and then minus your operating expenses, everything that it takes to operate your business. So a lot of businesses, they run at 12% net margins. And so we're going to use that as an example. We're going to say 12%. So this is what your net margin actually looks like whenever you're looking at the numbers. All right. So it looks like this. If you said your revenue was a 60, your cost of goods sold was at 20, we still use the same numbers. The operating expense we said was 12%. So that puts us at 32.8. So $32.80. That means we then have $7.20 left over. And I will tell you this, and I have talked to plenty of practices. I've talked to practices that are seeing, $1,000 a week, and they're literally making $1.20 every adjustment because they just aren't understanding their numbers. Once you understand these numbers, you can actually be profitable. So this is because when we get our gross margin up to that 80% where we want it to be, as opposed to at the 66% in this example, that would be a 26% net margin. And that more than doubles your net margin, AKA how much you take home, right? So you'll see that 26 is over that 12%. That 26% is 2.2 times greater than 12%. So that means you have now doubled what it is that you make. That's how important this is. Like, that's where when we start to see these numbers, I know that whenever we start, if this is your first time hearing it, it's like, this is overwhelming. It's a lot, but stick with me. You're going to want to go back and look at this again, and Tyler will tell you how to do all that. But this is something that you're really going to want to look at because it makes a difference. So let me show you. Let me show you in real life what this stuff looks like. There's two ways to get to that 80%. Two ways. You can decrease your COGS, decrease your cost of goods sold, and that looks like this, right? So your revenue minus your COGS, the same formula we just used, that would be 60 minus 20, using the same example we just did. So if you decrease your COGS to 12, let's say, to $12 instead of 20, then that means your gross margin goes up to $48. And that then makes it to where you're at your 80% where you want to be, right? Because your 60 minus your 12 puts you at $48, and 48 over 60 puts you at the 80%. Now, when we're looking at increasing the revenue goes a different direction, right? So we're going to increase that. So in this case, we're looking at the same numbers, the 60 minus the 20. So how do we get 80%? We've got to make sure that we're increasing what we charge. So we go ahead and we charge $100 per adjustment instead of $60 per adjustment. And that looks like this, right? So we've got 100 minus the 20 gives us our 80. That is at 80%. Now I will say this, when you're looking at increasing the revenue, there's a strategy to that. I'm going to give you a couple things to say. So write down some notes with this. That I will say this, that there's a lot of chiropractors that get messed up with this because they feel bad about charging for their services. Whatever those numbers are, I don't care. I'm just saying they feel bad about increasing their pricing or increasing their numbers and what it is that they're charging. But if you don't do this, you won't make any profit and you won't be able to help more people. The more profit I make, the more that I can market, the more that I can do things for my community. We do so much for our community. Like, you would not believe what we donate on a regular basis to women's shelters, to pet shelters, to so many of these local community things, not because, oh, we want this glory or anything, because we want to help our community, because we are actually part of our community. And the more that I can do that and give back to the community that gives to us, that's good, right? And so most want to increase their revenue and not decrease their COGS. So if you think about it, in 2021, everyone was increasing their revenue. Everyone increased the costs due to their increased costs, right? So everybody went up. I can't tell you how many times I went to like a Crazy Bowls and Wraps, and they were like, oh yeah, we're increasing our costs. Chipotle, we're increasing, chicken costs more now, so we're increasing by another $1.20 or whatever it is, right? And you probably saw those signs everywhere. The dry cleaner, everybody was doing this. So people were in the mindset of, oh, everything's going up. And so because everyone was used to seeing that, if you didn't do it then, you want to do it now, but you want to be smart about how you position it. So I'm going to give you some wording to work through and see if this sounds authentic and real to you. Because when we're looking at it, you're going to want to make this happen before you get into November, because people start thinking about Christmas and they don't want to think about increased costs. So the wording that I would suggest to use is something along these lines. We strive to keep our costs low, and over the past 3 years, we've kept our costs as low as possible. But now, due to increased costs on top of inflation, we're increasing our prices for the first time in 5 years or X years or whatever that is, right? If you use something like that, it lets them know, hey, look, we've been trying to do this and we've been doing this for years, but at the same time, because of increased costs and inflation, we need to increase that too. Plus, we need to be able to pay, like I need to be able to pay my staff more because of inflation, because everything else is going up. So they need to make more money as well. So obviously you're going to want to do this increase at the right time and what feels right, and make sure that it's specific, that you can do that and take action. But I just want to put that out there to you. So let's plug in some real world examples. So let's plug in the numbers that really work for you, and then we'll be wrapping it up here in just a minute. So let's say that your associate, you're making $4,000 a month. You can see 40 new patients per month. That would be 1,200 over 3 months. That's $400 a month. That means that you're collecting $16K a month. And so that 400 times the 40 gets you your 16K. Now, your 16,000 minus your 4,000 per month then equals the 12,000. That would be 75%. So when we're looking at the real world numbers, 75% gross margin, so that you can kind of look at this not just from an adjustment standpoint, but you can look at it from like practice numbers. You can look at it this way, and that's going to be the 12,000 over your 16,000, and that's going to be that 75% gross margin. But we want to be at over 80 or 80% gross margins. And so here's a way to change that. So you could easily triple what it is that you're doing. And I say easily, meaning that relatively, but you can triple that and then plug in the numbers that work for you. So whatever that is, wherever your headspace is for that, like let's say that your associate, you're making that 4,000 a month, just like we talked about before. You can see 40 new patients, but now instead you're seeing them at 3,600 over 3 months, and that's 1,200 a month. That means that you're collecting 48K a month, because it's that 1,200 times your 40 that gives you your 48K. So that now means that you've got the 48K minus your 4K. That gives you 44,000, and that would be at 92% gross margins. Look, I will say this. We want to be at that over 80% gross margins. If you start really digging into these things and look and see this, I'm urging you not to do what I did. I basically looked at it and I was just like, I'm just busy. Right? I'm just busy. I'm grinding, I'm going, I'm doing all that kind of stuff. Being busy is really staying on the surface. That's constant movement. And it feels good, right? It's like dopamine hit, like adrenaline, go, right? That's the hustle, that's the grind, that's the go. And I love that. But I also see that there's reason for other things. And there's nothing wrong with doing that at times whenever it's necessary. But if we really want to grow, we have to go deep. We can't go surface level. We have to go deep. We have to go deep into understanding whatever that topic is that you have, so that you have exponential growth. Unfortunately, most people don't have the willingness to do this because it doesn't feel like growth. It feels slow. It feels still. But once you do that and you give yourself the permission to take that time, you actually grow exponentially. So I'm going to implore you that to look at this stuff and really look at it for your own practice so that you can grow more. This is my first time that I've shared this content in this format, and I would really appreciate your feedback and letting me know if you thought that it was good, if it was great, if it was like you had 1 or 2 nuggets that you got out of it, whatever it is that you can take and then use, let me know. And I want to know that, because it'll help me know what you found valuable for your practice, and that so that you can be more successful. Again, I don't have anything that I'm trying to sell you or pitch you or anything like that. I just asked Chiropractic. I was like, docs are asking me about this stuff. Can you please help them? So, and they graciously agreed to make that happen. So ChiroTouch, Tyler, I truly appreciate you all making this happen. So Tyler, I'm going to hand it over to you now, and just want to thank you again and ChiroTouch for having me.
Thank you, Doc. And also thanks everyone who attended. Have a great rest of your week.